franchising. It's a part of business that I've had a real 180 in my career on, from being someone who never really understood why you would go the franchise route to now a proud owner of a large franchise territory. Conversations with the franchisees are, what do the insurance requirements look like? How am I typically finding labor? What's my competition look like? And those are all great questions to be asking the franchisor, so that you can get really comfortable with the process and see if it's an opportunity that makes sense for you. Hey, welcome back everyone. This is The Drive with Rick Vazza, where we talk about business, and specifically we're going to be digging more into franchising. It's a part of business that I've had a real 180 in my career on, from being someone who never really understood why you would go the franchise route to now a proud owner of a large franchise territory. So particularly, a lot of the questions I tend to get around are the big three of the trades, what I would call. So it's plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. But as we've kind of had continued pour in of interest from especially the private equity players around the country, I want to spend more time talking about some of the tertiary or adjacent companies that also service the trades, or service the home and are in the trades, Getting a lot of conversations around other brands that may be attractive or have potentially good upside, and maybe in some cases a lower initial entry point too. So when we're talking about today, it's not a lower initial entry point, but it is a strongly growing brand. And they've built a really great reputation. It's called Monster Tree Service. So Monster Tree Service is part of the Authority Brands conglomerate. Authority Brands is a pretty interesting story. Backed by private equity, they made some really significant moves in creating a conglomerate portfolio of different trade services. So you'll see here, just going on their website, if you go to our brands, they have a lot of highly reputable, really distinguished brands that they've added to their portfolio. Some of the leading names in franchises, I'm sure you'll be familiar with most of these, and probably even seen vehicles or vans around your part of the country, depending on where you live. And so specifically, I want to talk about Monster Tree Service. I've had several conversations already about interested candidates who are looking at this brand and exploring it as an opportunity. And they have built a really great reputation. So we dig in, just kind of a few things that stand out. It's they've really built a great marketing presence. They get the bright green trucks. This company really has done a great job in differentiating themselves. They are the leader in the space, so kind of first to market and fastest to growth story, which obviously is fairly compelling. And they do have locations fairly scattered across the country now, but still have quite a bit of availability open. What do they do? So the majority of what Monster Tree is taking care of is related to tree services, as you can imagine with the name. But they've also built out what I find really interesting. And one of the questions I'm regularly getting asked, really with any sort of brand at this point, is there any sort of recurring nature to the brand? And I think that's what's gotten people excited, and why I'm getting more interest from people who have started exploring the brand, is they've really added this, arborist services to their arsenal, if you will, as far as what they're doing. And that's actually showcased in their financials. So another great thing, being backed by Authority Brands and having all of their ducks in a row and I's dotted, T's crossed type of thing, is they have the full information in their FDD. So one of the things whenever you're evaluating the franchise is getting into that FDD, understanding what exactly you're looking at. So this is the FDD for Monster Tree. It's available publicly online. You can pull that information up. Typically, you're just going through and it gives you the background. Each FDD contains this, or at least has the same framework of items that are available, and then it kind of depends on the franchisor, what is in those items, if anything. Some items don't necessarily even need to have information available. But the most popular one amongst people I talk to is going to be your item 19, and that is where we're talking financials. So you can see here in your table of contents, you look up at item 19, and on page 63, we're going to get some more information there. In this case, I'm just going to hit that again, so it brings us down right here. And this is all the publicly available information that the franchisor is providing. So not my interpretation or anything like this. This is just available online. Anyone can check this out. But it's really, really helpful to get a feel for the financial performance of the current operators. And you can see how they break it out too. So it's really helpful getting a sense of how many units we're talking about, how many territories we're talking about, revenue numbers, performance numbers, and things like that, which is really interesting. So as we get into here, you can start digging in. And this is where, when I'm talking with people, you can really start getting a sense of, okay, I think fundamentally speaking, you have different categories of ownership and where you're going to land, right? Is it, in this case, Chuck in the tree, so to speak. So Chuck in the truck where he's handling the trees. So actual owner operator handling the day-to-day labor. Are you coming in maybe with a larger investment, looking at more of the, what I call the executive ownership role, where you're involved in the business, but not necessarily the field labor, but handling the back office, business development, marketing, finances, all of those. Or in a semi-absentee model, are you coming in with enough capital to actually hire a general manager, have someone actually run this business for you with regular touch points so that you're making sure that it's a good investment? And all of this information is really going to show like what is the potential upside for the business, and it's really going to help as you're starting the conversations with the franchisor, because this is really just a starting point, right? You're going to talk to the franchisor, get a better understanding of the brand, who's involved, do you fit well with them from a personality standpoint? Can you really see yourself being part of this group? And they're vetting you just as much as you're vetting them, right? It's, franchises are awarded, not given. It's not like just anyone who signs up is going to get on this. These are, again, great brands that have been built across the country. They're highly coveted in a lot of cases. But this is going to give you an idea of what the earnings capability is of the location, and is it going to be worth the return on your investment and also the return on your time. This is a good helping point to get the conversation started. And then, of course, after those conversations, you'd also want to be speaking with other franchisees. That's what we call the validation process. So going through, just confirming, the information. The nice thing is a lot of the franchisees are going to be more than willing to have those conversations. And a lot of times they'll be very transparent about how things are going. But as we go through the FDD, this is where you're going to see a lot of that information just to get kind of the wheels turning and the process started for you. You'll see you have lowest gross revenue of franchisees in the group. You have highest in the group. So you're really getting a nice range of capabilities. Of course, I'd want to know, well, how long have they been operating? And you get a sense of, minimum barriers of operation that they've already put in here, which is really, really helpful, right? These would be what we'd call newer franchisees. I would argue these are still new, but obviously a little bit more seasoned. And then these have been operating for, over 3 years. So they've, typically when I'm talking with candidates, that 3-year window is really that ramp up period. I always try to tell people, like, go into it with that expectation. Even if you have a great brand behind you, you are starting a business from scratch, more or less. It's going to take time for people to know you in the market, recognize you, trust you, and use you, right? So it's going to take time. That 3-year mark is a really critical turning point for a lot of businesses. So it's really helpful that they break it out this way. And I think it gives you a good insight into what the expectations are. And you can start to see, like, it's a pretty, significant distinguishment there. 3.2 million top line versus a 2.4. So you can kind of see that's added up. Of course, we'd want to know the number of units as well to see what's making up that group. And these are all the types of questions that you'd be asking when you're going through that process. As I mentioned, though, so one of the things that's been interesting for them in particular, they've actually been growing their recurring business model, which is really interesting. This is helpful too. They break this out really nice. Not all franchisees do this. This actually gives you even a better insight into the P&L, which is really exciting. Kind of takes some of the guesswork out of there. And again, when you're going through the validation process, you're looking at that. As I was mentioning, recurring business. So they've had a nice ad here. This is that plant healthcare gross revenue. And this is something that a lot of people are expressing interest in when they're starting the conversations with them. And specifically, you're seeing the increase there that has gone through. So some pretty significant year-over-year growth, over 100% in this case. So that's really exciting. It's a newer line of business, but really, it's trying to get more frequent touch points to those homeowners, making sure that you're not just on the perpetual hamster wheel of new clientele, right? Having that repeat business can be really, really helpful. So I know that's something they're excited about. It seems like it's been an exciting topic of conversation with people who are candidates that I've spoken with. Definitely something that would be worth digging into of exactly what is going into that ongoing maintenance and how are they making sure that those are sticky relationships. So just kind of some high level on the FDD. This is the type of stuff that I like to look at, make sure that the numbers make sense, that it's getting me excited, and I can really see myself ultimately making a good return on the investment and return on time, given all the brands that are out there, and it can be really, really helpful. Crystal clear understanding of what exactly the working capital requirement is going to be in order to get into a brand like this. And it's going to be super helpful. So as you're putting together your projections, and then of course, as you're getting your funding prepared, you really want to have a clear insight into exactly how much money am I going to need to set myself up for success. Again, I always tell people that 3-year runway, hopefully you're faster than that. But with a new business, going into it, thinking that you're going to be cash flowing year 1 or year 2, is often where people find themselves getting into trouble. So really building up that runway as best as possible is going to give you the highest opportunity for success. And a lot of the starting points for where that conversation is going to come from is going to come out of this FDD. Last thing on Monster Tree that's just kind of exciting, let's go full circle here and back to Authority Brands. So one of the things that you're getting with the power of this, and it's something that I particularly have enjoyed with working with a franchise such as Zoom Drain, is kind of the back end pieces. Authority Brands in particular touts, check out these enterprise platforms that they offer. So there's a few different ones in particular that I have personally not used, but I've heard really favorable things about, which is Bimax, Successware, and Success Academy. I won't go through the specifics of each. You can just go on their website and look at this. But in a nutshell, you have buying power, you have operating support, and then you have training support. And I've heard good things about these different enterprise platforms that have helped get these brands to where they are. So definitely something of interest. I'm not there nearly yet to the point where we could expand into something like this, but it certainly would be on my radar as a available business. Some of the things that are typically coming up, and we're talking through this in conversations with the franchisees, or what do the insurance requirements look like? How am I typically finding labor? What's my competition look like? And those are all great questions to be asking the franchisor, so that you can get really comfortable with the process and see if it's an opportunity that makes sense for you. Hope this is helpful. If you have any questions that I can dig into further, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you want to explore a brand like this, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to connect you with the appropriate people and make sure that it's a fit given your background and interest levels, as well as financial capabilities. You can find our information there and the link in the comments below as well. Thank you. And if you did enjoy this, please subscribe, hit the like button, share it out, all that good stuff. Appreciate it.